All right. How you doing today, Coach Brian?
Hey, Coach Todd, how's it going today? Good to be
Good,
here
man.
with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's definitely an important topic to talk about. So many veterans are, fall under the PACT Act, all the way back to the Vietnam War and even before, and especially to present day. So
For
definitely an
sure.
important topic.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm really glad we're going to welcome everyone in here, and we'll go over a couple rules of the road and disclaimers. But I'm really looking forward to some Q&A today on the PACT Act and different things that are going on. I know you're a veteran, Brian. I am too. We're just going to allow some time for everyone to go ahead and get logged in. I think we'll probably start around 5 minutes on the hour. So we got about 4 minutes left. Hopefully, everyone's getting logged in, and they're able to communicate with us as well. And we'll go over that. But I like this topic because of the presumptive conditions and what's happened, because I've seen a lot of veterans try to get things service connected. And now that the PACT Act came out in August 2022, there's some opportunity there for all of us as veterans to take advantage of making sure we all get the rating we deserve, including yourself and me, right? Because you're a vet.
Yep,
I'm a vet, right?
yep, of course. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of us definitely struggle with a lot of the PACT Act symptoms, and a lot of us veterans didn't even realize we had them. I know I went 15 years before I was able to really understand, how the burn pits affected me, and a lot of other toxins we are exposed to. A lot of veterans were exposed to, JP8 or diesel fumes, or, just a host of toxins that are put in front of us in the military.
100%. Yeah. And I was just talking to a vet yesterday about that, and they had no idea about the PACT Act. And I think that's why it's important when we get to look at, all the uploads and use this program. I was a client here too, but again, we're going to get into all of this, but we got just about 2 more minutes, and we'll go ahead and get into it. But Brian, I always love talking with you, man. It's awesome what you do. I appreciate what you're doing, and also what you're doing for our vets. So thanks for your service, bro. You're a Marine, correct?
Yeah, yeah, in the
Yeah,
Marine.
and I'm a sailor, so you know we're getting along here. It's
Yep,
good
yep.
stuff.
Hand in hand. Yeah, yep. Gotta love my Uber drivers. Yep.
Oh, I
A
love
lot of
it.
respect. A lot of respect.
I know it's
But,
fine. I appreciate
but yeah,
all
we
this.
appreciate everyone posting in the comments. It looks like we have quite a few joining us today. Um, if you guys want to put in where what branch you were in, maybe when you served. Yeah, we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely, Mr. Larry Johnson. Welcome home, sir. Thank you for your service. We got uh, uh, Mr. Brand or Mrs. Brand, Air Force Base, Maine, 82 to 85. Um, Yeah, there's a lot of different things going on here. That's for sure. Dexter, welcome. Um, we will get to everyone's questions just so you know, but I think we can go ahead and get started, Brian. We're at 5 minutes on the hour.
All righty. Well, we do have our disclaimer to read. I don't know if our support can pop that up on the screen for us, or
Yep, and just so you know why that's happening, I'm Coach Todd Steinbrecher. I'm a veteran coach here. I was in the Navy 99 to 08, and we got my fellow brother here, Marine Brian Coots. But our disclaimer, if you want, if it's not up there, we can go ahead and just share that. But Yeah, I was a client here, and Brian, you've got your story as well. Um, and I would like to go over that disclaimer.
Yeah, if you want to share a little bit about your time in service, I'll get it pulled up and get that read.
Yeah, no problem. So I did 99 to 08 search and rescue. And I was in the Navy, did 3 back-to-back tours after 9/11, was a high-risk instructor. I'm service connected myself, and I was a client here. And a lot of things with the PACT Act that are coming out for people that are just realizing it. Um, we are going to do a Q&A at the end of this conversation, and we are glad to have all of you here. Okay.
Yeah, my name's Coach Brian. I was in the Marine Corps, a couple terms in there. In the infantry, got beat up pretty good. Got out with a 10% for my knee. About 10 zeros for some burn scars, and kind of went on with life like a lot of us do. Got married, had a family, didn't even think about additional benefits. Waited about 15 years. The wife finally made me go get some help with PTSD. So that's kind of what got me going down the road. A therapist recommended checking into benefits. That's how I found VA Claims Insider, and they helped take me from that 10% to 100% P&T. In turn, I wanted to pay it forward. I actually gave up a successful business to come here just so I could help my fellow brothers and sisters, and just how much it means to me. Helping our brothers and sisters get that rating they deserve.
Absolutely.
But I do have that disclaimer. We are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we are not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based coaching consulting company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insiders also connects veterans with our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions for a wide range of disability conditions.
Awesome. So happy Wednesday, everyone, and thank you for spending some time with us today. And we just want to let you know, we see all the comments, kind of rules of the road. We are going to get through this presentation, and we're looking forward to questions and answers. At the end of the day, we have things that we can offer: strategy, education, medical evidence, one-on-one coaching. We have strategy sessions. We're going to talk about claim submissions, C&P preparation. That means compensation and pension. So we'll say C&P a lot. We do have live classes via Zoom. You can go to vaci1.com. That's vacione.com. We offer classes 3 times a day. We have almost always Monday through Friday coffee with the coaches. We have mental health exam education classes that are live on Zoom. We also have C&P and medical exam education classes as well. We also, Coach Brian, have discovery calls when people want to learn more.
Yeah, it's definitely something everyone should check out. With a discovery call, you'll get connected with what we call a veteran ambassador. They'll be able to explain the program, the method we use, which is called the SIM method: strategy, education, medical evidence. If you're a part of our program, you know that medical evidence is what wins claims. They'll go over all that. They'll go over our fee structure, and definitely motivate you to get moving in the process. I went through this process on my own for a few years before jumping over to VA Claims Insider, and I probably wasted more or lost more money doing it on my own than if I just would have paid to have it, to have a coach beside me, pushing me through the process. So, but yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and same. I was a client here and I got frustrated, Brian, and then changes are happening all the time with the VA. So we want to make sure like everyone is up to speed on what's happening, because just because we went through the process in the past doesn't mean there's not new opportunities. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, right? And that's when we get into the PACT Act, right? So the PACT Act, in case anyone's wondering, what it has done for all of us is it's expanded the VA healthcare and benefits for veterans exposed to things like Agent Orange, burn pits, like you talked about, Coach Brian, and other toxic substances. And if you suffer from disabilities because of these conditions, you may be eligible for the PACT Act compensation. So even if you've been denied before, when this new law came out in August of 2022, that's changed the game for a lot of us veterans. So, what does that mean to you? And do you qualify? So, let's all be frank here. You put your life on the line. It doesn't matter what you did. You were a service member and you deserve compensation for what you endured. So, right now is a good time to understand what you're entitled to. So, we're going to cover the situations where you would qualify for PACT Act compensation and determine whether you are due back pay or how much should be in your pocket monthly. So, let's get started. And if you don't mind, Coach Brian, if you want to tell us what is the PACT Act?
Yeah, the PACT Act is a law that expands veterans' benefits and health care to those exposed to burn pits and other toxic substances, including Agent Orange. We have a lot of Vietnam veterans out there who are exposed to Agent Orange. And my dad was in Vietnam, so it definitely holds a special place, and all of the Vietnam veterans do hold a special place in my heart, and along with all veterans. But I urge you to go to the doctor even if you don't have any symptoms. I know my dad was diagnosed with I think it's monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance. He has to get a spinal tap every 6 months. And it's nothing serious now, but it could turn into blood disease later. So it's something to keep up on. So even if you're not having symptoms, get to the doctor, go to that, the toxic risk exposure with the VA and get checked out. You never know what conditions you may have. But yeah, the VA PACT Act was put into effect in 2022 and helps provide generations of veterans and their survivors with benefits, care, and compensation they earned and deserve. The PACT Act is named after Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, a combat medic who died in 2020 at the age of 39 from lung cancer due to toxic exposure stemming from his service in Iraq. The law's full name is the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson's Honoring Our Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxics PACT Act, also known as Honoring Our PACT Act of 2022.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to take a moment, Coach Brian. I don't mean to cut you off at all, but that's what you just said is a big deal. That's a person that went through, that was our brother in arms and uniform. There are a lot of advocates to talk about different presumptive conditions, all the way back to what you said in Vietnam, all the way up to those of us that have been in the desert and in between, right? So everyone's case is unique. It's going to be one of those things when you get with your coach and you ask for a discovery call, there's no obligation there. You can contact us and we want to talk to you. We're vets too. A lot of us have been clients here as well, and we're going through this. Everyone's case is unique. So it really depends where you were, what you were exposed to, and what's going on. And with that being said, I mean, Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, that combat medic, he was a person that was exposed to some of these toxins. And I'm really glad that people advocated for this, because what happens with presumptive conditions, When President Biden passed the PACT Act, the following changes were made. Um, what it did was it expanded and extended eligibility for VA health care for veterans with toxic exposures and veterans of the Vietnam, Gulf War, and post 9/11 eras. It added more than 20 additional presumptive conditions for Agent Orange, burn pit, and other toxic exposures. It also added more presumptive exposure locations for radiation and Agent Orange. And it requires the VA to provide toxic exposure screening for every veteran enrolled in VA healthcare. It also helps the VA improve research, staff education, and treatment related to those toxic exposures. So, Coach Brian, if you don't mind, I I was wondering, what does a presumptive condition for toxic exposure mean?
Well, generally, you need to prove your service caused your condition. The PACT Act in itself isn't a claimable condition. With any claim you file, you have to meet what we call the Clusa triangle. That means you have to have a current diagnosis, an in-service event, and also a nexus, a connection between that current diagnosis and in-service event. But when it's a PACT Act claim, that does away with the nexus. It's presumed to have been caused by your time, whether in the Middle East or Vietnam, or wherever you're at when you're exposed to those toxins.
Exactly.
Yeah, in these cases, they're referred to, like I said, as presumptive conditions. What are VA presumptive conditions? I kind of went over that. But if you have a presumptive condition, you don't have to prove an in-service event caused your condition. Instead, you only have to meet the service requirements for the presumptive condition. How much is PACT Act compensation? That varies per condition. Every condition out there, has different rating criteria, according to severity of symptoms. Your PACT Act compensation depends on your condition in your VA disability rating. For example, if you have a 60% VA rating for a disability caused by burn pit exposure, you'll receive over $1,300 in tax-free monthly compensation.
Yep.
If you have a 100% disability rating, your monthly compensation is more than $3,700. If you want to see the full 2024 VA disability pay charts, you can go on VA Claims Insider. We have an excellent blog. Just post in, type in, the 2024 pay chart, and you can see the different compensation amounts for each rating percentage.
Yeah, and one of those things too, and I appreciate you saying all that, Coach Brian. One of the questions that you have that a lot of veterans have is, can you get back pay for the PACT Act, right? So, like, when you look at that example that you just gave and what could happen, it depends on the severity, duration, frequency of those symptoms and what you have. So, can you get back pay for the PACT Act is one of the things I like to answer. You can submit PACT Act claims at any time. However, to receive back pay, you must have submitted an intent to file or applied for benefits by August 9th, 2023. But keep in mind, any claim submitted after that date will not receive any potential due payments between August 22 and August 23. So it doesn't mean if you miss that deadline, you cannot submit a claim, because you can submit a PACT Act claim at any time. So if you're wondering when will you receive your PACT Act pay, first you got to be granted a compensable, rating before receiving a PACT Act compensation. So you can check the status of your PACT Act claim online by signing into your existing login.gov, ID.me, DS Logon, or My Healthy Vet account. But I do want everyone to know, if you are confused about any of this and you have no idea what's going on, that's why that discovery call, if you want to work with Coach Brian or me or any one of our wonderful coaches, log in and get into your insider portal, get a discovery call, get a strategy call, because we want to talk to you. We want to make sure that you understand everything that's going on. Okay. So you can sign up online if you don't have any one of the above accounts that I just went over. In addition, you can contact with questions regarding your PACT Act claim by calling 1-800-698-2411. Again, that's 1-800-698-2411. And Coach Brian, one of the big things I wanted to go over while we went through this presentation is who qualifies for PACT Act compensation, because a lot of us don't know if we qualify or not. And one of those things is the first step in receiving that PACT Act compensation is determining whether you qualify, right? So you can receive payment in several circumstances. So reviewing the following information carefully and determining where you fit in is essential. So just remember, for any of the below instances, you must also have a diagnosed condition listed under the presumptive list to qualify for PACT Act compensation. Would you like to go over some of those, Coach Brian?
Yeah, sorry about that, Todd. I had a
you're good.
little glitch there, but thanks for going over that.
Yeah.
Exposure to burn pits with a diagnosed condition. We talked about those burn pits earlier. Burn pits were a common way to dispose of military waste at military sites. However, side effects of burn pit exposure lead to throat irritation, difficulty breathing, coughing, and eye irritation. You can see our compiled list of military burn pit locations if you log into our VA blog. You must meet one of the following qualifications to qualify for PACT Act compensation for burn pit exposure. You served on or after September 11th, 2001 in Yemen, Uzbekistan, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Djibouti, Afghanistan, or the airspace above these locations. Or you served on or after August 2nd, 1990 in the United Arab Emirates, Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, Iraq, Bahrain, or the airspace above these locations. And it also, goes into the exposure of the Camp Lejeune toxic water with a diagnosed condition. If you served on Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1987 and later and developed any of the diseases under the presumptive list, you may be eligible for PACT Act compensation due to water contamination issue. To qualify, one of the following must be true. You served at the Marine Corps base Camp Lejeune for at least 30 consecutive days between August 1st, 1953 and December 31st of 1987. You served at the North Carolina's Marine Corps Air Station, New River, for at least 30 consecutive days between August 1st, 1953 and December 31st, 1987.
Yeah. And then, Coach Brian, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about also the service locations for Gulf War presumptives. You had hit on that, but if you also served in any of the following locations on or after August 2nd, 1990, the VA presumes your undiagnosed illness is associated with your service. And those also locations include Afghanistan, airspace not included, Bahrain, Egypt, airspace not included, Iraq, Israel, airspace not included, Jordan, airspace not included, but Kuwait, the neutral zone between Iraq and Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria and Turkey, airspace not included, the United Arab Emirates, and the waters of the Arabian Sea, Gulf of Aden, Gulf of Oman, Persian Gulf, and the Red Sea. And I just want to make it clear the airspace above all of the countries and locations listed in this section is recognized unless specified that it's not included. Okay. And then, Coach Brian, there's also those added radiation presumptive locations.
Yeah, the PACT Act added 3 new response efforts to the list of presumptive locations for radiation exposure. You may be eligible for PACT Act compensation if one of the following applies to you and you have a diagnosed condition.
Yeah, so like you could either have been on the cleanup teams or nuclear response teams at the Eniwetok Atoll. I hope I said that right. From January 1, 1977 to December 31st, 1980. Or you were on one of the cleanup teams or nuclear response teams at the Palomares, Spain B-52 plane crash from January 17th, 1966 to March 31st, 1967, or you were on one of the cleanup teams or nuclear response teams at the Greenland Thule Air Force Base B-52 plane crash from January 21, 1968 to September 25th, 1968. And I do want to make a point here real quick, Coach Brian. There's a lot of different presumptive condition lists that have come out, and a lot of this has happened because I feel very honored, and I want to say this. Thank you for everyone that was ahead of me that wore the uniform, because if it wasn't for your generations and all the things you've been through, we wouldn't be able to provide these types of things, in my opinion. And I'm very happy to see that some acknowledgement is coming up more and more. You know what I'm saying, Coach Brian?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Just like you said, it wasn't uh, for the ones before us, that put on that uniform and have fought for these conditions. A lot of them have, been to Congress to fight. They've called the congressman. None of this would have been possible without that.
Yeah. It's amazing to me, and I'm very honored. So those of you that were before Coach Brian and myself, on behalf of us as veterans, thank you very much, because this is really important. I think we should probably jump in. This is a good time to talk about the exposure to Agent Orange with the diagnosed condition. Um, you may or may not know, but most people probably do. But just in case, Agent Orange was a toxic plant killing chemical, and it was used by the U.S. military to control vegetation during the Vietnam War. And the name Agent Orange comes from the orange band around that storage band. You may be eligible for PACT Act compensation if you served in one of the following locations during the specific dates listed. It's Thailand, all U.S. and Royal Thai military bases from January 962 to June 30th, 76. American Samoa or Guam and territorial waters from January 9th, 1962 to July 30th, 1980. Johnston Atoll off or on the ship from January 1, 1972 to September 30th, 77. The Korean Demilitarized Zone from September 1, 1967 to August 31, 71. Laos from December 1, 65 to September 30th, 69. Cambodia and provinces from April 16th, 1969 to April 30th, 1969. Vietnam and Blue Water Navy within 12 miles from January 9th, 62 to May 7th, 75. C-123 airplanes ground maintenance crew flight of listed C-123s. Testing, storage, or disposal. Other veterans exposed to Agent Orange can qualify if they can show proof that they served where herbicides were tested or stored outside of Vietnam, or were involved in the testing, storage, or disposal of herbicides in the U.S. So, Coach Brian, if you are an eligible surviving family member of a veteran, what's going on there? You got anything to add?
Yeah, if you're a surviving family member of a veteran, you may be eligible for the following PACT Act compensation benefits: a monthly VA dependency in indemnity compensation. It's called a DIC payment, a one-time accrued benefits payment, or a survivor's pension. Um, you can find, like, I mentioned our blog earlier. We have an excellent article that goes into those DIC benefits, so I definitely recommend checking that out. But yeah, as far as filing a PACT Act claim, the VA began processing PACT Act claims in January of 2023. And if you haven't previously filed a claim for presumptive conditions, you can do so in several ways. You can file a PACT Act claim online, which is, in my opinion, and I'm sure you'd agree, by far the easiest way to submit a claim. It gets it right in the VA's hands. You can also do it by mail. By mailing to the Department of Veterans Affairs Claims Intake Center, P.O. Box 4444, Janesville, Wisconsin. Zip code is 53547-4444. You can also go in person at a regional office near you, or with the help of a trained professional. There's people out there that can help you get those claims submitted.
Absolutely, and that's one of those things again, and I know I've brought this up a couple times, Coach Brian, but actually being able to have a discovery call, contact us. We will have that conversation with you. And we're going to do everything with integrity, morally, ethically, legally, make sure you have what you need. You had said this before too, Coach Brian. Medical evidence does win claims, but when you're looking at the PACT Act too, when you are under one of these presumptive conditions, depending on where you served and when you served, the burden of proof is no longer on the veteran. It is now on the VA. And if you are going to the doctor and you have any of these diagnoses for these presumptive conditions, it's only going to help you to go to the doctor because medical evidence wins claims. And this is an opportunity for many of us that maybe we've been denied before too, right? So, how to receive a PACT Act compensation for a previously denied claim, you can submit what they call a supplemental claim. So if you received a denied claim, but the VA now considers your condition presumptive, this is a good opportunity to, if you were denied before and one of those diagnoses is on that presumptive list, you can do a supplemental claim, which is an appeal with new and relevant evidence. Well, the new and relevant evidence is it is now a presumptive condition. So the VA will often contact you if this is the case. However, you should not wait for them to reach out because you don't need notification from the VA to file a claim. Okay. So to help your claim, you want to ensure you collect any relevant service records, medical records, and additional supporting documents to show that toxic substance exposure led to your condition. Okay. So at the end of the day, um, again, get with your coach and see what's going on with your case because we're here to help. Okay. I know, Coach Brian, there are a ton of people on here, and welcome, family. It's so good to see you all. Um, I think I'm going to start looking through the comments and see if we can answer some questions. But if you'd like to add anything, Coach Brian, please let me know. But I think we've got some really good comments here from people, and I'm really glad everyone's here so we can spend our important time together because you guys could all have been somewhere else, and we appreciate you being here. Mr. Johnson, thank you very much for your service. It looks like Miss Brand, her husband was stationed at Loring Air Force Base in Maine from 82 to 85. Almost his entire duty there was asbestos removal, demo, and construction being done in his dormitory while he lived in it. And then I would say, Miss Brand, I think this is a really great comment to bring up, because there is some service connections there that it seems like you are aware of already. Um, do I think he's a candidate for getting approved under the PACT Act? I think that's a great question. I would like to, whoever his coach is, or if you guys want to sign up, have that conversation, go through that review, because there are sometimes things in the medical records and time and service and presumptive conditions. We want to make sure that we're looking at all that with you to see what the best strategy is. Okay. And there's no obligation to contact us. We're happy to tell you what your strategy might look like. There's always more than one way to do that. Hey, Coach Brian, I got a really great question here from Dexter. If I'm 100% permanent and total, should I sign up for the PACT Act? If you're 100% permanent and total, everything from head to toe, including dental, is covered. And I would say you can still do the toxic exposure assessment. The biggest thing that we want to make sure that is happening for you and your family is you're getting the treatment that you deserve and the rating you deserve. But if you are at 100% permanent and total, you could still talk to a coach and get some resources. But typically, if you're already at 100% permanent and total, anything else that's going on with you, whether it's presumptive or not, you're covered. Go get the treatment that you deserve. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And, another point to mention is, once you're at 100% P&T, if you open a new claim or a new, that can give the VA the opportunity to reevaluate any past conditions. If any conditions have gotten better, they could possibly reduce them. So usually when you're at 100% P&T, I would just leave it alone. There might be a one or two small cases where it might be worth it. For example, if you think it's a condition that could lead to your death. But honestly, I'd leave it alone. You're at 100% P&T, you hit your goal, sit back and enjoy life. Submitting that claim for a PACT Act condition, isn't going to benefit you in any way, really.
Yeah, and it's actually a great question, because I get that a lot too, Coach Brian. And if you are 100% P&T, I would definitely speak with someone before I would be thinking about submitting a claim, and making sure you understand, the pros and cons of that. But overall, 100% P&T, you should be covered for anything that you need, and just get the care that you deserve. Here's another one that I get, Coach Brian, a lot, and it's a great question. It's from West Coast Toast. West Coast Toast, I'm already TDIU. Should I disregard the PACT Act? That is a fair question, West Coast Toast. So I would say it depends. It depends on what is happening with you, how old you are, if you're depending on wanting to go back to work at some point. Because if you are TDIU and you are already 100% there, you may never go back to work again. And because your service connection, even though it's not 100%, it may debilitate you in a way that it affects you occupationally and or socially, where you cannot go back to work. However, if you do want to go back to work, it could mess with your TDIU. It could mess with your taxes. It could mess with your compensation. So in general, I would say if you want to know what your real answer is for you uniquely, I want to make it clear. None of this is cookie cutter. Everyone's case is unique, depending on where you serve, depending on what your conditions are, depending on what your experiences are. I would say West Coast toast. Talk to your coach. If you don't have one and you want to have a call about it, ask us, because it depends. Um, and at the end of the day, we would like to help you with that. But that is a wonderful question, but it really depends on what's going on with your life. And we like to specify uniquely what's going on with the individual veteran as opposed to a blanket statement. Good morning, Chris from Reno, Nevada. Good morning, Xavier. Good afternoon, Patrick. Ron's got a question here, Coach Brian. Are coronary artery disease and sleep apnea connectable? Again, this is one of those questions where medical evidence helps when support claims, right? So there are a lot of secondary things that people can be service connected for. Indeed, cardiovascular, respiratory things, certain things in that nature can have sleep apnea connected secondary to it. But again, case by case basis, we got to look at all those things and see what the medical evidence says. But again, I know I'm a squeaky wheel here, but that's why I'm a big fan of people checking in with us, Coach Brian, and asking us, hey, let's look at the evidence. Let's see what's going on. Do you need to get yourself to the doctor? Do you need a nexus letter? Does this make sense? Right. And if it does, then yeah, you may be able to service connect that. Absolutely. But you won't know until you do the work and you do the breakdown, because Coach Brian, I know we say this a lot too, but no one should care more about their claim than themselves, right?
Yep, 100%, 100%. And signing up for that discovery call, just getting with a coach and just talking to them about your conditions and everything you're going through. You might have a few other conditions that could be related to be a secondary to sleep apnea. You can get with a coach, go over all that. You mentioned the nexus letter. That goes back to that Calusa triangle. You can you get with that coach, you figure out what medical evidence you're missing, and make sure you get that, and be able to file that fully developed claim and give you the best or the highest possible chance of filing a successful claim.
100%. Yeah. And that's the deal. And I know it can sound like sometimes these are all great questions, but we really have to dig in for every individual and see what's going on with them, because everyone's case is different and unique. Okay. And I like what you said there, Coach Brian. Welcome, Kathy. Welcome, John. Welcome. I think it's R.A. Templar, Mathis, Kathy, Air Force. Welcome, Peter, Kevin, Philip. Scott, you had a question, just wondering, does this cover Fort McCullough? We would have to look into that a little different. I'm not sure at this moment in time, but if it does, let's look into that, okay? Because there's stuff that's being added all the time, and we're going by what the VA is saying, but it doesn't mean that there couldn't be something presumptive there. So I think that's a great question, but we would have to dig into that, okay? Aaron, welcome. Patrick, welcome. Henri, welcome. Harvey, welcome here, sir. Retiring next month. Thank you for your service, sir. West Coast toast, man. He was Navy. I knew it. And let's see, what else do we have here? We got a wonderful amount of people. Chris, still serving, Weekend Warrior. Thank you. for your service, Scott, John, Ron. If we miss people, we don't mean to. Jason just won his higher appeal, but now the VA is refusing to pay me my back pay to August 22nd, 2022. I told them yesterday I will not stop fighting to get it. Indiana Army National Guard. So, Jason, with that one, if the VA is refusing to pay you your back pay from August 2022, it could be a couple things. One could be depending on when you put the claim in. Another could be that they have a duty to assist and they made an error. If you want someone to look into that, have a discovery call with us. We'll help dig in there and see if there's anything else that we can assist with. Okay. Let's see.
And just to hit on that Fort McClellan too, real quick.
Sure.
As of now, there's no presumptive conditions, but that doesn't it doesn't necessarily mean you can't still hit that Calusa triangle. Possibly get a nexus letter. If you can prove toxic exposure. And I'll use myself as an example. In my service treatment records, it said I was exposed to asbestos. I had no idea it was in there. I don't remember or recall being exposed to asbestos. Maybe I was, but it kind of depends what's in your medical records. And going back to what Todd says, that's why it's so important to set up that discovery call or sign up with Todd, for a coach, and he can go over your records with you and figure out if maybe you can get a nexus letter for that condition that you're suffering from being at Fort McClellan. I know there are a lot of toxins used at that base with Monsanto nearby as well. So you never know what might come out of that. So definitely something to dig into.
Yeah, that's right on, Coach Brian. Yeah, I mean, there are presumptive conditions based on toxic exposure that might not be on the list, like you said, but it's still doable to be service connected. I want to say, let's see. Welcome, Patrick. Welcome, Henry. John, good to see you, man. You are welcome. Love you, brother. Daryl, recent 0 to 90 in the last 9 months with the help of VACI and Coach Brian.
Yeah, Daryl, that's my buddy there.
There you
fellow
go.
Marine. Semper Fi, Daryl. Good to see you on here.
Semper Fi, Daryl. Wayne, if I am 100% and get free real estate taxes, New Jersey, does that benefit continue for my spouse if I die? That is a great question, Wayne. If you are 100% permanent and total, there are so many benefits, not only for you, but your dependents. And then you don't even have to be 100% depending on what state you are in as well. You may be eligible for some really great benefits. They could include things like property tax, other type of registrations in the state, dependent education and benefits there too. Brian Reese, our founder, if you are a client here and you go into your resources, he has his second edition ebook out that is free to you. You can also buy a hard copy. However, that is a great book. It is an ebook. You deserve it. It is free. You see the link right there. There is a free download. It will break down not only federal benefits, but it will break down the benefits by state. So you may be able to double take advantage of not only a federal benefit, but a state benefit as well. Really great stuff there. Every state's different, but I would definitely check that out. You can also go to vaclaimsinsider.com without logging into your insider portal. And there is a wonderful search engine in the upper right-hand corner, and you can even type in your state, and all these wonderful links and different things per state will show up for you. That's vaclaimsinsider.com. You don't have to log into your insider portal. Just go in the upper right-hand corner and type in your state in the search engine. Okay.
And kind of back on those state taxes, sometimes it's not only just state, every state's different, but sometimes even counties are a little bit different. So, I'd recommend getting with your county tax assessor and ask them. I know in the state I'm in, they do pass over to the spouse after, I would pass away, but I'm not sure about every state. So, the best thing to do is get with your county tax assessor. Yeah. Just to make sure you have the right information. But that's really a really good question, though.
It really is, and just to recap on that too, Coach Brian, the state, there are benefits that could be there, and then there's the federal. So for me as well, my information and what I have can be passed on to my spouse for survivor's pension. Okay, so that's good. But every state is different. Okay.
Hey, let's get to Dennis Potts' question real fast. Hello, Desert Storm vet. Never a sick call in my 4 years. Pretty common among us, I know we had a corpsman attached to us, so we always went to him. A lot of veterans, the only time we would ever go to sick call or medical is if we were medevaced or passed out and carried out on the stretcher. But he has a deviated septum surgery, always stuffy, sleep apnea, GERD, but all my doctor records are lost from paper to electronic records. And he wonders if he's not able to qualify for anything. Definitely sign up for a discovery call or get with a coach. More than likely you can still you still have a path to success. You served in Desert Storm, there's options there. There's secondary conditions. You could have that sinusitis. That's a presumptive. You get diagnosed with that. Sleep apnea could be a secondary. So you definitely have a path there, or more than likely have a path there. So yeah, don't give up. Sign up for a discovery call, get with us, and we'll look over your information and get you set in the right direction.
Absolutely. I got one. That's great, Coach Brian. Absolutely. I got one from Norman Brown trying to help prepare for CMP exam coming soon. Norman, I know who your coach is. He's actually on my team, and I will have him reach out to you so we make sure that you're squared away. Okay. And I appreciate that, but we will definitely make sure you are good to go, and I will get that out here in just a few minutes. Okay. And then I've got another one. I love all these questions, Coach Brian. This is really good. Patrick, great question. What's the cost? And I'm going to need help with the PACT Act claim. So the cost, if there's no cost, if you're not working with us, we would love to do a discovery call or a strategy call with you. However, if you do put a claim in, the cost is whatever your monthly increase would be, without back pay, without dependent pay. It would be like you were a single person. It's 6 times that amount, and then they give you an opportunity to either get a discount if you want to pay a lump sum within a week. You get a 10% off, or you can pay it interest free over 12 months. Basically, you keep half of your increase, and then you're paying with money that you didn't have before. So you still got a little money in your pocket. There's no penalty to pay off early. Okay. And we're happy to go over that, or our veteran ambassadors if you want more detail. Okay.
Real quick, Philip, currently 70% PTSD, total 90 with other stuff, denied both ED and sleep apnea, is service connected. I'm guessing discovery call, but any other thoughts? Well, more than likely a nexus letter. If you didn't have that you have to complete that Kaluza triangle, or we also call it the golden circle. Severity of symptoms added into that, but that's usually a lot of times what we see why claims are denied is not meeting that nexus. You need that independent medical opinion linking the sleep apnea to possibly another condition that you may have.
Right.
But,
Yeah, and one of those things too, Coach Brian, is that ED as well. That is considered a special monthly compensation. So even if you are at 90, or let's say you're 100 permanent in total, you get that ED special monthly compensation. That would be on top of the percentage of your compensation for service connection. So you may even get more, because a lot of times ED is one of those things that is secondary to another condition that you have. But again, yeah, get with your coach and definitely talk about that. Let's see. I know we're getting close here. We got about 4 minutes. I want to try and get as many things as we need. B-Man, what form do we use for PACT Act? That is a great question. There's not a particular form to do that. What you want to do is get with your coach and look at where you were, what presumptive conditions make sense, if any, and then you would file that claim appropriately. So if you have been previously denied, like we talked about before, that would be a supplemental claim. And if you're on the presumptive list, that's something you can pursue pretty easily. But again, everything is case by case, so we would have to look at that. But typically, if you have something that falls under the PACT Act, depending on if you've been denied before or not, would depend on which way you want to submit that claim. Okay.
Well, looks like we're about at the top of the hour. And just so you know, be sure to come back and check, because your questions will be answered, even after the live's over with. So if we didn't get to you, we apologize, but definitely come back and you'll have an answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things is, I like that you said that, Coach Brian, because if anyone does, like Coach Brian just said, has any questions, we are going to follow up as our team to make sure that your questions get answered. And you can watch this live stream on repeat after we're done. Milton, you asked a great question. I know we just got a couple minutes, but let's use it. I already have 100% total and permanent. I have asthma diagnosed after a deployment, 0607, applying for PACT Act. Will that jeopardize my 100%? So it's kind of like we already said, and it's a great question, and we may have already covered that. But just to reiterate that, if you're already 100% total and permanent, at the end of the day, I think I speak on behalf of Coach Brian and myself. We want to make sure you're getting the treatment that you deserve. But if you're 100% permanent and total, if there's something else going on with you or a condition, you're covered. Go ahead and get the care that you need. I personally would ask to have a conversation with you to make sure you're squared away. But in general, if you're 100% permanent and total, I personally would not put another claim in. I would just get the care that I deserve. Okay. We got 1 minute. Let me see if we can scroll through anything else. Thoughts on going for obstructive sleep apnea secondary? This is Chris. My secondary service connection chronic sinusitis with allergic rhinitis, 10% PACT Act presumptive condition. Do you all think this is a pretty favorable secondary route? So we do work with the preferred provider network. They are not in our entity. They are a different organization, but they are called Telemedica. They specialize in working with veterans on these types of things. I would get with your coach, Chris, and see if that is a solid strategy for you based on what you have going on with you. But we do have a preferred provider network that we work with. Again, they're not our organization, but we do like using them, and you do get a discount because you are an elite member with us if you are signed up with us. Okay. And Coach Brian, we are at the hour. I really enjoyed this. Wonderful questions. I know we can never get to everyone, but again, if you all have questions, please get with us. We want to answer them. Do a discovery call or get with your coach. We're happy to help. And from one vet to all of you, I love y'all. Welcome home. It's good. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah. Definitely right there with you, Todd. Appreciate everybody showing up today. A lot of good information, a lot of good questions. Yeah, we're just glad you guys are here. We enjoy what we do. We don't. A lot of us say we don't work a day in our lives, and it's because of our fellow vets. You're our brothers and sisters in arms, and we're definitely here to help. So at least jump on that discovery call. Maybe get with a coach and let's see if we can get that rating increased. But it's been a pleasure, Todd. Always.
You too, Brian. Love you, bro, and love all you fam. And thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to do this. Do not hesitate to contact your coach and see and make sure you get the rating you deserve. And everyone have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.
Take care, all.